The apple trees are 29 months old now, so let's get you caught up. Hey everyone, it's Rob the Backyard Gardener, and we have had a ton of 100-degree days consecutively, and finally today, here it is Monday, we have some fantastic weather. It's about 80 degrees right now. We had a huge storm this morning, so everything's been well watered, and they've gotten a well-deserved break from the heat. Thought it'd be a good time to go ahead and catch you up on the apple trees. I got those 3 little apple trees that was part of series number 2 that just about turned 2 years old now. And this one I topped. If you remember, he had that really long leader and this second base of branches that came out, so I decided to make this the top since it was pretty far from the bottom, about 6 feet anyway. But he's done well, looking cute, happy with that one. This is another one that's very similar, that it has this lower, then a bare spot, and then a top branching. We're gonna let him do his thing. He needs more green to put on deeper, or to put in some deeper roots, so we're gonna keep letting him kind of grow as he goes. And then we've got another one over here, and this guy's got some pretty good branching as well. This is another one of those twin towers, and seeing as how my other double or dual leader tree put on fruit this year, after only 2 years old, 2.5 years old, I'm gonna let this guy kind of do the same thing and see if that alters his progress for next year compared to the other two. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take you over to the one that isn't fruiting, but it's my largest apple tree in the yard. Remember, the ones I just showed you had just turned 2 years old. The ones I'm going to show you now are sitting at 29 months old, and they turned 29 months on June 1st. So they're doing well. One put on flowers and set fruit, as you know if you've been following the series, and the other one didn't do that, but is growing like a weed, literally like a weed. Let me go and flip the camera around and show you this guy. So like I've been saying, June 1st marks the 29-month age of this apple tree I've grown from seed. I've topped him a ton, but I have not topped him this year. You know what's great? I haven't topped him this year, and he put on a bunch of growth early, and he stopped right around the 12-foot mark. He hasn't grown. All that's happened is the leaves have gotten fatter up there, and he's starting to really put out some side branches. I don't want to get my hopes up high here, guys. I'm pretty sure this guy is going to end up being a 35-foot tree if I'm not careful with the pruning. But I'll tell you, he hasn't put on a bunch of height after the last, after the initial spurt in spring. So I'm pretty happy about that. This tree is doing fantastic. I'm keeping him up. I'm doing something a little different with this guy. I'm giving him, since he's not flowering or fruiting, I'm giving him a pretty good amount every 60 days of a nitrogen-based fertilizer. Basically blood meal. That's all. A powdered blood meal. I'm mixing it in the water. I'm pouring it at the base. I'm giving them a treatment in 1 gallon's worth of water every 60 days. I'm gonna see what this guy does. I think come late fall, probably September, October, I'll start giving him a fertilizer that's more balanced with potassium and calcium. But for now, I'm going to keep feeding him some nitrogen over the summer and see if I can get him to just fatten up his trunk, put on some branching. Looks good. He's even starting to put on some small shoots down on his base and some water sprouts down here, which, you know what? I'm tempted. I'm tempted to take some of these water sprouts here at the trunk and try to propagate them when they get a little bit bigger. But for now, we'll let that sit there. It's not doing any damage. This guy looks fantastic. I do need to thin up his canopy. On fruit trees, you don't really want the branches crossing too much for a couple of reasons. You got to get airflow in here, so when you do fruit, you also want to get light in here. But for now, like I said, he's not fruiting, he's not flowering, he's just focused on growth and setting some firm roots, fattening his trunk up, see if I can expedite when he might fruit and flower. All right, beautiful looking tree, really happy with him. Man, I wish the other one that had the fruit looked like that, but you know what? The other one's got to focus on its fruit more than on its frame, and that's probably part of the reason why it's a little bit more dwarfed. All right, let's go to the other side and take a look at that other apple tree. All right, guys, here's the apple tree that has been fruiting and flowering and all that good stuff, and I'm really excited about it. You know, one of the things I need to do, and I'll be doing this as part of the video and I'll show you the final product, is I've got to get some of this crabgrass that has now grown around his base out of here. One of the things you don't want to do is crowd the trunk of any fruit trees with grass or weeds or any flowers for that matter, because they'll compete for nutrients. You got to remember, as far out as the canopy is on an apple tree, which means his canopy goes from here to here. So this whole circle right here, I should have free and clear of any plants or weeds, and I need to put some mulch down. Fruit trees are a heavy topsoil feeder, so they get a lot of their nutrients from the top few inches of the soil, and this crabgrass is eating all that up, and that could be causing me problems as far as my fruit development. So that being said, let's take a look here. I could show you this guy's starting to put on some size and height, which feels good. He's got lots of little fruit sets. You've seen most of them. They are slowly getting bigger. I have thinned out any of the clusters to only a couple. But what I've also done is I've taken only one off of my hand pollinated cluster, and there's a reason for that. I want to get as many of those fruit sets as possible to get to maturity, and just to kind of get an idea of what they feel like and taste like and all that kind of stuff. But I did take one of the fruits off there. We're down to 4 on it, the 4 largest. You'll remember in previous videos that I had a little runt one below all these, but I took them off. They are getting bigger, guys. They're starting to get pretty good size. Remember, these only set these fruits around the middle of April. So they're almost, I guess, 45 days into it now. And one thing you want to remember about apple trees is the fruits, depending on the species, and again, we don't know the species of these, the fruits could take anywhere between 100 and 200 days to maturity. I'm going to assume, based on the fruit development on these, should we get full-grown apples and not crab apples, I'm going to assume these are probably closer to a 200-day developing apple. If that's the case, they're on track based on their size right now. If it's not the case, if they're supposed to be developed in 100 days, they've got a lot of work ahead of them over the next several weeks. But I'll tell you, again, we've had a lot of days over 100 degrees. The trees really struggled. You can see some of the leaf problem here. This is the first time this tree had some leaf issues. And again, I'm thinking 2 things. I'm thinking 10 days in a row of over 100 degrees. No matter how much I water, it is what it is. And then the second problem, I think, is the crabgrass growing down here. So what I definitely need to do is cut away all the crabgrass, get some mulch laid down, and that will help this tree over the next several months. Let me go ahead and get that done and bring it back in. All right, that's a little more manageable, guys. I cut away heavily most of the crabgrass that was in here. We've got a little bit of mulch layer on it now, and this should allow at least the base closer to the trunk where the roots are to not compete so heavily for nutrients. And I guess the biggest step now is to sit here and wait, guys, and continue to give you progress updates on the fruit. I'm hoping that they develop more. I'll tell you, they grew a little bit since the last update, and then the last couple of weeks when it got really hot, they stopped really getting bigger. So I'm hoping this is not the final size. I don't want to be impatient. It takes quite a bit of time, 100 to 200 days for these guys to get maturity. And so they'll put on size for a while. Unless they're crab apples, we won't know. Well, there you have it, everyone. There's my apple tree from seed update on month 29. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm really hoping that these guys produce edible fruit. If you're enjoying the series, please give the video a thumbs up. And as always, thanks for watching.